Hello, people of Connecticut. I am here with our special guest, John Anderson, and we're here with Jason Douglas, and I'm Selena Rifkin, and we are talking about all things Connecticut today, and a little bit of Minnesota. So we've got because how can you miss all the fraud? Um, so I'm going to start because I have good news. We have been talking for a year. Well, it's probably hasn't been a year because I've been doing this for a year. You guys have been doing this for a year. But I have been since October of 2024, I have been attempting to get a hold of my RTC. My
The
ex
Antonio story continues.
Yeah, this story continues. So this was caucus week when all of the town committees, all the town Republican committees they're required to have a meeting. And at that point, it's easier to get voted in because somebody could just nominate you. There's less process. Well, I have I've still been trying to get a hold of people and find out when there's a meeting. This has been all year, barely any conversation.
Hmm.
So after the election, I called a bunch of the former selectmen that got voted out because my town went completely blue from red.
Mhm.
So started calling them and saying, "Are you okay with this? Because I'm not okay with this." And, one of them was like very, very cranky about the whole thing and wanted nothing to do with the RTC ever again. Another one was like, "Oh, yeah, it's totally fine. It's all fine. It's just a cycle. It goes this way and it goes that way." I'm like, "Oh, dude, you are so
Wow.
yeah." So this is just my reaction. And so then I did find one that I had a very nice long conversation with. He's the former mayor's brother. And we just had a lovely conversation. And he's an ordained minister too. So
Mhm.
he was very excited that I'm going to be graduating soon. And so I went to this meeting last night, not knowing what to expect at all, because I basically had no communication with anybody other than this one guy. So it was
Hmm.
supposed to be at a restaurant. We got there. It's cold. It's cold last night. Cars are driving up. Restaurant's closed. Restaurant's closed. I'm like, what is this? What is so the mayor shows up, the former mayor shows up, and he's like, "Yeah, I talked to the guy and he's really apologetic. He's sorry. He said this was great, and then he forgot that the restaurant was closed on Monday." And I'm
Oh,
like, "Oh dear God." Okay. So we have the meeting in a parking lot.
the
And I will say that this is apparently not the first time this has happened because the fellow who I met, his name is,
parking lot grill.
yeah. So we had the meeting in the parking lot. Um, Joe, who was my chit chat buddy, was like, "I'm gonna nominate you." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
he nominated me, and there was someone else there who was new who showed up, and somebody nominated him, and they did a quick organizational vote thingy,
And
and
you're in.
yeah, so I'm in.
So you're now a member of the
And
Ansonia
so the
RTC.
RTC. Yeah, after
Wow.
over a year of
So what's your, did you bring their grade up? What was their grade before and now what is their
it
grade
was not
now?
good. It wasn't good.
You just made it, you just brought it up a whole letter yourself.
I think so. Yeah, just by the fact that
That's
I
great.
got there and got in. I will say that the people were very nice,
Hmm.
friendly. We have heard so many stories of hostility of people walking into these things and just being treated like garbage. And, Mona, who's one of the people who we, communicate with and work with, she's in Old Lyme, and she's half the people there hate me, but she's still doing things. She's been in for,
Right.
she got voted in last
See,
year.
that's the kind of person we want to know what I call the F group, the fighter group, the ones that are really want to, take what's wrong in Connecticut on and not
Yeah.
be
Mm.
afraid. So essentially,
So she's in, and we have somebody who got voted in Fairfield and somebody who got voted in Norwich.
wow.
So
Maybe,
yeah, so it was a big night.
maybe I will go back to Manchester. I'll go to Manchester then.
Yeah.
Get myself in over there.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, the caucuses would have been a good time to go because that's when things are a little looser. So but
it's hard to
if
believe
you
that
lose, you still go.
you hear stories about people being treated like garbage at the RTCs when they go, and maybe some of those stories are true.
Hmm.
My guess is that it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they would be just so rude up front.
Hmm.
I've
Most
heard a
people
lot.
they're going to be
I'm not
polite.
saying it makes sense, Jason.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably when they say, "Oh, they were awful. They treated me awful at the RTCs." It's probably only after the new arrivals said, some position that goes against what they want to do or whatever. I can't imagine people just walking in and having people like treat them like
Well,
crap right in through the doorway.
well, you
Too
remember
much.
Melissa, who we had on a while back.
Yeah.
She ran for mayor, and a bunch of people in the Republican RTC were really annoyed with her
Yeah,
because
she was running for mayor though. She wasn't just a regular person walking in saying,
yeah,
"Hey,
yeah, but there was a lot of screaming involved. There was a lot of shouting.
this is where the rubber meets, in my opinion, at least politically speaking, this is where the rubber meets the road in Connecticut
Yeah,
at the RTCs and the DTCs.
yeah. Jay,
This
have
is
you
where the
ever
power
been to one of
structure
these?
gets. Ultimately, these committee members come from these committees, from these RTCs and DTCs, and ultimately the chair comes from that.
Yeah. Jay, have you ever been to one of these meetings?
I went to the Bolton RTC several
No,
years.
Jay, not you.
Oh, I'm Jay too. Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
You're Jason.
There's
We're
too
both
many
on.
J's.
We got to work that
Um,
out. Go ahead.
I haven't been in recent years, but I've like years ago, back in the 90s, I would attend a lot because my dad was heavily involved in politics because he ran for state rep where I think Larson or Jeff Gordon, I believe, was in his seat that he ran for, and Jeff Gordon was in that seat for years. My dad essentially lost, and then the very next election, it went red, and it's been red ever since he lost. So he clearly did something to shake up that part of the state. But yeah, I was heavily involved. I met like Governor Rowland when I was younger, so that's really where I got my start. And then I know people that have been involved in the RTC in Connecticut. I knew the former executive chair, John Kleinhans, who's out of Vernon. I believe he's the Vernon town manager right now. He's a younger guy, but I've been in contact with him. But even he doesn't really want anything to do with the RTC right now in the state,
The
which kind of
GOP
tells you
or the
something.
town, because the RTCs are specifically the town,
Uh,
How about
the
that?
full GOP, like he wants nothing to do with it.
right? Right. A lot of people
Because
feel
he'd be his main reason is he's frustrated with its underperformance, essentially,
Yeah, he's
or
frustrated with the
obstruction.
fact he's I think the biggest frustration that he's kind of talked about is the lack of unity within the party and
Yeah.
splitting funds correctly. Like he helped run campaigns in the state, and Republicans are just getting taken to the cleaners every election because there's not enough funds and everybody's fighting each other rather than unifying
Yeah.
and putting the best foot forward. And then even when it comes to getting donations, like people are just not willing to donate money to the any RTC or GOP cause. And that's the hardest part is the Democrats seem to have people lining up for days. And then those Democrats typically complain about not having enough money and Republicans tend to keep their money in their pockets. So it's kind of like
Mm.
if we want to live off the state as Republicans, we can, and then we can donate the money to these people to help them get elected. But then it's like an endless cycle of bullshit. So the RTCs just haven't figured it out on a local level, and it's because the GOP hasn't really figured it out on a state level.
One of the problems with that is that come from natural occurrences, though, like the fact that Republicans and conservatives tend to be more free thinkers and more open to their opinions, so therefore more apt to disagree with each other and infight.
Right,
And then
hard.
the other thing is Republicans tend to work more and
Mhm.
have jobs more and therefore less time and to devote to, which is a problem I personally feel sometimes. I work full time, so that's two things that lead to that frustration. And I think we can help people understand that. Maybe it'll help people look past it a little bit more,
Mhm.
and then unite behind the things we all do agree on, like not having men push women around in sports and not having Marxists making decisions in our capital, that kind of stuff.
I'm hoping that I can apply some of the skills that I learned in school that has to do with, you know, getting along with people and
Mhm.
helping because I really think that what's going on in our country has, it has spiritual roots. And I think we need to be thinking about that. And
Mm-hmm.
there are things that hold us together that go beyond Christianity. And
Yeah.
it's important, that's important. But if you don't fill that spiritual space, then people fill it with politics.
Everybody wants a safe space. They want economic fairness, ability to, pursue their dreams, their happiness, their survival, and have family, that's not threatened. Those are the things that we all want to live in a safe environment. Those are the things we all can unite behind, that we all, I would think, want, most of us.
Yep.
And then there's the agitators that don't. And those are the people that we have to deal with. So it's a
Well,
big picture
they
thing.
they want that. It's how we're getting, and there's a lot of conversation about that. It's like I think the agitators actually want the same thing we want, because
The,
but
the ones that are the
there's
ones that are out
there's
there
a how you
protesting.
get from point A to point
Mhm.
B. And
It's really the leadership. It's the far left leadership in this country that represents the most imminent threat, and those are the people that have to be dealt with. The ones that are, again, in my opinion, we have a country that has freedom of speech. You can say pretty much what you want, but we all know there are limits to it. When you yell fire in a crowded theater, that's a limit. We all know. We all learned in school. That's a limit to free speech. You can't do that. Well, when you yell Nazi at to a population, when we know that Donald Trump, like him or not, is not a Nazi, you're fomenting a fire. You're yelling fire in a crowded theater, in my opinion, and there needs to be limits to what, especially politicians, on the idea that, okay, Jimmy Kimmel, I'll give you him as an example. Jimmy Kimmel has the right to say whatever he wants, but he doesn't have a right to do it on ABC every night.
Right. Well, I mean, technically he does. He gets paid to do it.
He gets paid to do it, but he doesn't have a right in the First Amendment to do it.
it's not the same thing as a right.
He has the right to this. He has the right to the speech, not to the stage. That he's got to create for himself.
And paid for the stage, and yay him. But
ABC. Whoever's leading ABC is irresponsible for letting a man go on and basically lie on television in order to foment emotions amongst the population. The things that Jimmy Kimmel is saying on TV, Lee are I believe directly responsible for some of this. All this, we have a big percentage of our population. I'd say 10% of our population right now, probably going
Mhm.
unhinged, looking to stop Nazis from taking over our country that don't exist.
Well, I think
Minneapolis is a good example of that.
I'm not saying
I
they don't
think
exist.
the biggest issue is I believe Jason, we had just when we met last week, we were talking about some other stuff outside of the podcast, but the point that I brought up was you have to file with the FCC as a news organization, and then
Yeah,
you are held to a strict standard. So with somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, he's not part of a news organization. He's part of something called entertainment. So
that's
under
correct.
entertainment, he can say whatever he wants as long as it doesn't violate the FCC rules on swearing
No,
and
no, no, no,
crude.
Jay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the government should interfere in anything what Jimmy Kimmel is doing. What
Right.
what I'm saying is he doesn't have. He has. Yeah, they cannot interfere what he
I think you're
says.
talking about a moral issue, Jason.
Right.
ABC, right? He doesn't have a fundamental right to do it on the stage that he's doing. He just has a right to say what he wants. You're right. It is more of a moral issue, Selena. Good point.
Yeah.
ABC needs to take him off the air as one of the major three networks. They are committing a moral wrong and fomenting violence in the country by allowing him to go on stage and talk about. Now, look, what happened in Minnesota is a tragedy, and we're going to get to that. But I've watched his show, and he's not looking at facts. He's fomenting emotions to create
Well,
violence, which is
what's very interesting is I just had an interaction. It's like it's almost like, well, let's start with the left wants to change what words mean.
Mhm.
yeah, right.
It's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter what word it is. They want to change what it means. And it's like they've changed what the word facts means.
Correct.
Right.
That's
And
what the
I
term
just
your
spent,
truth.
yeah, yeah, and I just for fun, I did this for fun. I just spent an hour going back and forth with somebody about power sources. And this guy was very upset about the loss, well, right now the court has the Revolution Wind project They're saying Trump can't block it, and Blumenthal was posting, it's like, oh, we'll get this back. This is great. So, I made a snarky remark, and then somebody came back at me, and so I was going around, and I will. There's some things that it's like if I've written an article about something already, I
Yeah.
will just dump facts on you, and then I had Grok, which AI is
Hmm.
very, very convenient for doing things like really quick math and discussing things like energy density. And and this guy was like, it's like you can kind of tell when someone is like they've gone a little bit deep into something, but it's like what constitutes a fact? And this is our institutions have been so destroyed that we don't even know, let alone what that word means.
If we don't know what that word means, we're in a lot of trouble in this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not just in this country, but on this planet. So fact, you know,
Fact is a proven opinion. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
a
it's
proven opinion.
Yeah.
So that's why when I saw a TV commercial once in the early 2000s or late 90s, I think, and it was about cigarette smoking, but it was your truth, and there's you hear the term all the time being used, your truth, my truth. There is no in my opinion,
right.
there is no that is meant for liars to be able to say that what they're saying is my truth. To,
Hmm.
to equate lying with the truth, and that's a cultural. I like to use the term cultural warfare. That's a cultural warfare tactic. There
Yeah.
is only the truth. You may be onto the truth or
Well,
not onto the truth, but there is only the truth.
I mean, Selena, to your point on AI, like I think it's going to get to some point where Google is going to have a serious conversation with Congress and the federal government about how AI is being used, especially when it comes to pulling search back to avoid this issue with words coming up with different meanings. Like right now, I believe they pull from Merriam-Webster. Um, are you muted?
I can hear you.
Oh.
No, I didn't. I thought you were saying something. So right now they pull from Merriam-Webster, but I want it to be deeper. I want it to be if you click on an article, it flags words as being under the incorrect context within that article. So that
Mm.
way you can't say something is racist and then have it not get flagged by AI within that article and say AI can say this isn't really racist, right? Like
Mhm.
Grok does it now on X to a certain degree with community notes and all of that. Well,
Right.
why can't AI start to step up and be that moral backbone of media for the internet? Because that's where we're at right now. If we don't have a police on the internet, at least let AI kind of shape this and then don't put these companies like Google in charge of shifting what AI says stuff means. Like that's the moral high ground that we have to kind of separate. Like AI is great. We need to figure out how to use it appropriately for media and discerning disinformation from the truth, but we can't have a programmer decide what is true and what isn't true. It's got to be deeper than that.
Especially when it comes to
Yeah,
photographs too.
absolutely.
So I think
Absolutely.
there should be a law passed right away that says especially for businesses, if you're doing an AI photograph or an AI video,
Say so.
it should be labeled AI on it,
Right. Watermarked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should
watermarked in some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
my other concern, and this is I don't think this is particularly AI related, but it's more about gaslighting. And
Hmm.
I did an interview, which I don't think either of you have seen yet, but I was interviewing a fellow who's gotten involved in the chemtrails fight.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. You read my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah. And his story, the thing that really turned him over was that and this may put um John a little under the bridge because Terminator was something, the original Terminator movie. No,
Hmm.
I think this was the second one. And he was watching it. And he remembered this because this was a Gen X movie.
Hmm.
We loved that movie. And he's looking at the movie, and there's background of the sky, and there's a big chemtrail across the, and he's like, was that there in the original? So he pulled out his original, because he had an original DVD, and he pulls it out.
Yeah.
No, it was not there.
Huh.
So this stuff has been added in, and this happened to me again today because during the course of that conversation, this person brought up he was like handed me He posted an article about how the fear around global cooling, the next ice age, oh, that wasn't real. The
Mm.
scientists really weren't worried about that. And I'm like, pardon my language, but F
But
your
that
article because I was there.
Right.
I remember what this was like. I remember the television. I remember the news articles. It's like, your article is gaslighting people.
right.
And so that's, and that doesn't have to be AI. Humans can certainly do that. But this is like, again, we're back to what is the truth?
Well, that's
Right.
interesting because we want to get to the truth on this network, and and then you bring up the chemtrails.
Yeah.
Say, I heard. So JD Vance was asked one day recently if he's a conspiracy theorist, and his answer was, "Well, if it's true, then yes, I am." And that's like
Yeah.
the way I love that answer. That's the way I've always looked at it. And when my brother actually was big on chemtrails way back years ago, 10, 50, he talked about how he's poisoning everybody. Chemtrail. I used to tell him he was ridiculous. I said, look, that's just ridiculous. First of all, even if you're an evil, sinister person, you want to poison everybody. Aren't your own family and kids outside too? You got to poison them too?
Oh, so,
Stupid. It's a stupid theory. But then, Selena, 2 weeks ago, you told me something that made me think again, and that is that you should tell everyone about the organic farms. What's going on with the food?
Oh, yeah, that that they're doing soil testing and the amount of aluminum and strontium that's getting built up in the soil is alarming. And they will have, it's like 1 year they're having really good growth, and then this recent year it's been really bad. And
mm.
I will say that I mean, and this year was also very weird weather-wise. We'd had almost no rain, like toward the end of the season.
Now that's a conspiracy theory
It
I can potentially believe.
feels like winter doesn't exist anymore
Yeah.
up in this part of the country. So I was actually going to ask, so how do you feel about everything falling under purview of the Library of Congress? As soon as it is created, it should automatically be logged off the original in the Library of Congress to avoid this gaslighting in the future. Because
Hmm.
on X, Twitter originally everything you posted was cataloged in the Library of Congress. So
Catalog
even if you
somehow,
deleted it,
yeah, I mean,
it still
sometimes
existed.
I want a physical catalog, but here's the thing. We've got so much information. And
Way
like
much.
if I can't physically go and look at it, that starts to become a problem. And it's a problem of volume. We have
Mhm.
because there's a
Yeah.
lot of humans, although perhaps not as many as we've thought. That's a different conversation. It's like I heard some
I know what you're
that
talking about.
kind of
I'm on that side of Twitter right now as well. I
oh,
saw that
it's
about
good.
yeah.
Gets really things
What's
Yeah.
this? What the population's a lot less than what they're telling us?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
That she
yeah,
murdered
because
a couple hundred million
China, yeah,
people?
because China, yeah, it's yeah, that's what
There's some math involved that's kind of like, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense now
it
that you're
does.
saying
It
it
Wow.
out
does,
loud.
doesn't it?
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, um, oh God, I've lost
Well,
my
I always wonder why there's
damn
not
it,
more
I
traffic
lost
on
my
the
train of thought. What was I talking about?
A physical copy of
Oh, right.
Yeah, the
uh,
actual
Yeah, physical
documentation.
copies
Right.
because for example, there's these things that we can't go and look at. Like we can't go to, most of us can't go to Wuhan and go into that lab to see what the
mhm.
hell happened.
Right.
And we can't go to the middle of the Pacific and look and see if the Pacific garbage patch is actually a thing because you can't find it on Google Maps.
Right. Well,
Um,
that's interesting. You bring up Wuhan again because
So it's like, so in terms of knowledge, and one of the other pieces is that one of the reasons, I don't know if you guys have heard, but they're moving a lot of records underground and into a safer space. And from what I have heard, and this is, I guess, all, again, we're kind of floating into the oh my God conspiracy theory territory.
Mhm.
yeah.
Like that some of those records have just been destroyed by people who think that they should be able to gaslight us and what have you. So, but it's like if I can't go and see it, it's like I'd like, it's like, can we go back to microfiche?
Freedom of information is
Right.
so
Data's pretty
important.
easy to
Freedom of
change.
information is so
I'm all
important.
for keeping records, but data's kind of easy to change.
Yeah,
Freedom of information is vital.
it's kind of similar to what happened with the Library of Alexandria, where they burned
Yeah,
down, and that's what
exactly.
held most of the world's kind of intelligence at the time,
Yeah,
and we had to rebuild
Right.
almost from scratch because
that's
of that.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
that's bad.
Well, that's a bad thing. And so it's when you brought up Wuhan. So I'm going to give you a theory about the COVID. I know everybody now understands what I knew when the COVID first hit, that it was just, everything was going on. But here's the thing. I have a theory, and I've said this then, and I'm saying it again now. I know everybody knows now that the masks weren't really needed, and Fauci's the advice he gave was wrong, and that he was, conspiring in Wuhan along with the Chinese and whatnot. But I'm going to take it a step further. I don't think a lot of that's even true. My theory is this: that the COVID was never more of a threat than any other flu bug.
Hmm.
It was just, and we get flu bugs from China every year, by the way. This one was nothing different. There was never a COVID epidemic at all. All there was they picked one called the coronavirus 18, I believe, 19, Corona 19, right?
Hmm.
And decided just to publicize it. That's all. Make it into a epidemic.
Hmm.
That's all they did. That's all it was. And then so I made the argument before, and someone said to me, Jason, how can you say that? So many more people died from this one than any of the other years. Well, my answer to that is it's called the placebo effect, or it's called the
Nocebo.
psychosomatic effect. Yeah, when you're told on TV that you have this deadly thing, you're gonna
There were some other things that would have added to that as well.
correct.
Yeah,
So,
I want to tell you, so since we're talking about that, so when you go on a ventilator, they're supposed to treat you with steroids to keep the inflammation down so that your lungs don't fill up with liquid.
Mm.
So that has been a standard treatment for decades. So right before COVID, there was a study that was done on, and the way they did the study was they withdrew the steroids quickly instead of withdrawing them slowly. We've known for decades that you have to withdraw steroids slowly. They did the study that said it was dangerous. So right before COVID, they stopped, when they put people in ventilators, they stopped treating them with steroids.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we know there were people were counting deaths from somebody comes into a hospital and they have died from diabetes or cancer or something, and they would count it as the COVID anyway because they happened to catch it while they were there, or they didn't have it at all. They were
Died with COVID rather
booking
than.
the books because the government paid hospitals based on the number of COVID patients they had. So that's clearly the incentive is there monetarily to beef up the number of. So all these things put together raised the death. And so yeah, that's my theory. I think it was just something that was publicized, pumped up, and it obviously created an election situation in 2020 that we know turned out what I don't think it would have turned out that way. But
I'm still confused how the H1N1 was like the precursor to COVID, and that didn't go anywhere close to what COVID turned into, and it's a much deadlier disease.
mhm.
That's what I never understood because they used to draw the parallels all the time. Like Obama did such a great job of handling the swine flu. It's like I don't think he did. I think it wasn't anything close to what people thought, and we didn't panic. And then when COVID came out, they ramped up that panic as if it was like
Right, they pumped
swine
it up.
flu. And
It
that
was a propaganda thing.
right, it never made sense to me.
No, the whole thing didn't make any sense to me from the very beginning. Just did, and especially with the mask thing, it didn't make any sense to me either. I'm no doctor, but I know that wearing a mask, the way they had us wearing them, certainly wasn't going to help the
Oh,
situation.
even
Especially you with that beard, man.
even immunologists were kind of
I never
laughing
wore
about
the
the mask
mask,
thing.
really. I wore that. I wore a mask for a total. If I added all the times actually put a real surgical mask over my mouth, it adds up to about 7 minutes, maybe. The entire epidemic. Now I had a scarf I used to put around my face when I go into the grocery store to get some food, and nobody really gave me a hard time about that. Eventually, a manager came up to me and said I had to have a real mask, and I told him basically what for.
Well, not only that, but even the 6 feet apart bullshit. Like if you're in a building and there's AC, does
Yeah,
6 feet really matter? Because AC is blowing everything everywhere anyway.
yeah,
Like we're just
yeah.
making up arbitrary things. Immunologists are like, this is a joke. All you need to do is open the windows and have it well circulated, and you're not going to get it. And they're like, no, these guys don't know what they're talking about. It's like, but these are the guys that study airborne diseases, and we're not going to listen to what they're saying. because it doesn't fit the agenda of lockdowns and constant mask wearing. And I mean, it was really, they wanted to see how far they could take the American people
Yeah,
in case of something much, much worse, like a war. Like
right.
they're putting us in basically in the state of Connecticut. I think we had curfews, right?
We did.
You couldn't be out past 11 o'clock at night.
Initially, we did. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
They were testing to see how much of our rights we could handle losing.
exactly,
Essentially,
exactly.
it was a barometer. Yeah, and it also killed Trump's economy, which was on the way. They had guys. Remember before the COVID, there was guys going on TV like CEOs from big companies around the country saying, "Hey, we're giving all our people $1,000 bonuses because of these
Yeah.
tax cuts." And Trump was roaring, and they had to put a stop to that. And they also had to open up the door for mail-in ballots
Hmm.
and all that kind of stuff to make elections easy to rig. It was the COVID. We talk about, Selena. We always talk about election rigging on this program, and that and the COVID are not disconnected. They're not mutually exclusive of one another.
They're close.
They're very closely related. It all set the stage for all of this. We had election fraud before the COVID, but not in the massive scale that we do now. Not in the absolute massive scale that we do now.
Hmm. And not only that, but I think a lot of the fraud that we're dealing with now is was amplified during COVID, and people got so sloppy with how they were doing things. That's why so much fraud is getting caught right
Right.
now.
Everyone went home and worked remotely. We know that without the doing it spontaneously like that, couldn't have had the kind of thoroughness to it you would have had by being in your office and whatnot.
Well, I remember even doing the PPP stuff, right? Like I was just I looked at it, I was like, there's no way this isn't going to get abused. And what happened? It got
Oh,
abused.
massive.
Companies like the Los Angeles Lakers were applying for PPP.
Yeah.
Like what? These are billion-dollar franchises, but they're small businesses, right? Based off of size of people that work for them.
Oprah applied for
Right,
PPP.
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Like,
It's
Well,
insane.
you're just bringing up like these different things. Like we talked about chemtrails a little bit earlier. So what is the answer? Is this really happening? Like I actually had somebody tell me he thinks they're coming out of there's certain airports in the state that he thinks they're actually taking off, and he thinks they may be actually dropping aluminum, you know, in small bits to destroy organic crops and therefore, continue the market edge for the crap food that's in the grocery stores, essentially. And that's a Maha issue, and that's one of the things we want to do on this podcast is investigate things like that, and go out and get to the real stories in Connecticut. Like Jay, you talked about earlier before we got on the show about what happened in New Haven with the Haven Peace Commissioner. You want to talk about that a little bit?
yeah, yeah. But I will add to what you're saying. That was like the federal government does pay farmers to destroy crops. That is a known thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just to keep the supply from crashing the market. So that's not uncommon. The fact that they use chemtrails at all doesn't make much sense to me unless they're doing it so they don't have to pay farmers. But then that's just poisoning us. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, the Carl Jacobson was nominated and appointed in 2022 for police chief of New Haven. He had been with the department for over 15 years, and the current mayor of New Haven is the one that actually nominated and appointed him. He just got fired or resigned over stealing at least $10,000 from the police
Oops.
force. And it was from a fund that was earmarked for something else, and he
At
just
least.
took it. And it begs the question is, what else did he do? Because if you're going to publicize this, chances are this is just to draw your eyes away from other stuff that he was doing. And I mean, if you're going to steal $10,000 one time, chances are you've been doing it for a while
Yeah.
and you've figured out how to steal money, whether it's from evidence or whatever, throughout your career as a police officer. Now, the mayor is not seeing any backlash over this, which blows my mind
Mm-hmm.
because this is somebody that he appointed. This is somebody that he had regular conversations with that patrolled the city of New Haven and set up everything for New Haven, which crime hasn't gone down the way that they've reported it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So when is it Elliker? When is he going to start facing some serious backlash
Yeah.
from this? And I know that our buddy Steve Orozco just lost that election. If this had happened in October, which is probably when this really did happen,
Yeah.
Elliker would not be in office right now.
They probably held on to it till now.
Right, right.
Well, we'd like to think that Elliker would not be in office right now. We got to remember how these elections get rigged. So, I mean, we had a guy in Virginia get elected as Attorney General that said he wanted his children killed from his opponent. How the hell did that guy get elected?
Yeah, yeah, that's
You know,
but
so
I mean, it just shows that even on a local level, right? Like police chief, right? Like we're supposed to back the boys in blue, and how
yeah.
are we supposed to back the boys in blue if there's more stories coming out and they say, oh, well, that's just one person. They're not all bad apples. But it seems like there's bad apples in every department across the state, across the country. How are we supposed to trust the police if the police are doing the stuff that they accuse us of doing and they're
Well, that's
arresting us
interesting that
on?
I'm glad you brought that up, Jay, because that's one of the things we want to do on Common Sense Investigates. It'll be one of the programs we want to do on our podcast. We're going to go out and, for instance, so Channel 3, for instance, covered the story about the police chief that you were just talking about. And they covered his resignation. Yeah, I believe he did resign. He was forced to
Mhm.
resign. And I believe they covered it in such a way that just they really talked. It was a very short story, and they only talked about the new chief coming in more than there was no talk. There was very little talk or none about the why he was resigning. There was no what a good news organization would investigate this corruption in New Haven. They just glossed it right over. And yes, conveniently, just a couple of months after an election against Orozco. So that's not proper news coverage. We want to do more here. You know, we want to cover the real stories that matter.
Mhm. And again, with Jacobson, he came from East Providence initially. That's where he started his career as a police officer. And I don't know if you guys know much about East Providence, but East Providence is part of the Mafia Triangle. There's families that are running from Boston and New York and Providence, and they
Yep.
kind of have a control on Providence and Cranston. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was forced out of the Providence spot, came to Connecticut
Hmm.
and you know how they like to protect each other. What my question is if he stole $10,000, then why did he resign? How do you force somebody to resign? No, you fire them under
Right.
under a moral
Right.
kind of duty to the
How
to the
about how
the
about charging
people.
him with embezzlement?
Exactly, exactly. Just
Yeah,
allowing him to just resign is just it's a slap in
gracefully.
the face to the
Probably still
taxpayers
gets his
and to the city
pension
of
and
New Haven.
everything. If you fire him, he probably doesn't get his pension. Oh,
But that's the thing. He
yeah,
Why
committed a
should he
exactly.
get his
crime.
pension?
Like,
He's
He
been
committed a
stealing money.
crime. He
stole
should
that
not
much
get it.
money. Why should he get a pension?
He shouldn't
Right.
get a pension. That's the whole point. Yeah, and they're so there's a lot of cover up. There's a lot of insider thing going on. There's a lot of nepotism and insider, good old boy club thing going on even to a greater degree than I originally would have thought. Even things like this.
Well,
And
and I get the qualified immunity, right? But like the only way to clean up these police departments is to start holding them accountable. And if you're getting suspended or you're getting complaints about you, it should be an automatic suspension and you should lose pay and potentially lose your pension
I'm glad
because
you brought that up.
it's the only thing that's going to get these guys to start acting correctly and to actually fulfill their job of protecting the community.
And protecting
If
our rights as well. Our
right,
rights.
right.
And that's another thing we want to do. We want to get rid of the bad cops that are out there. Now, let's to be fair, in my opinion, when they say, there's just this one guy that most of the cops are good or whatever, that there's truth to that. Most police officers are trying to do the right thing, do their job, protect the public. However, a lot of them have been trained in a way that is not conducive to that. A
Mhm.
lot of them are being asked to do things they shouldn't do or don't want to do. And then, of course, as in any organization, by the way, whether you're a firefighter or a nurse or a police officer or a podcaster for that matter, okay, there's always that 5 to 10% that are bad apples. They're
Right.
going to steal, they're going to lie, they're going to misrepresent themselves, and they're out there. And that's one of the things that. So, like, if a police officer pulls you over on the side of the road and walks up and says, "I want your license and identification," most police officers are trained to do that,
Right.
and it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
What they should do is walk up and say, "I'm Officer Rodriguez, badge number 504. You've been pulled over for this charge. Please, may I see your ID, please?" Okay.
Yeah.
Because what if it's not a police officer?
Right. And it becomes a fishing expedition 9 times out of 10 anyway. Like
Right.
I mean, most people don't even know about a pretext stop, right? Pretext stops are illegal under the Constitution. Under the Supreme
Correct.
Court, you cannot do a pretext stop. And if people understood more about pretext stops, like, oh, you're in an area that's known for drug trafficking,
Yeah.
that's why we pulled you over. Well, that's a
Yeah.
pretext stop. right?
Right.
That's not a legal pullover. And then
No.
they're pulling these people over and then they're finding something on them. And it's like, but see, that's the whole idea is it's a pretext stop. It shouldn't have happened to begin with. And then anything that you do or you're accused of should get thrown out the window,
Yeah.
right? But judges know it's a pretext stop, but they're not going to admit it because it takes a very good attorney to prove it's a pretext stop, right? And
Right.
because police officers are allowed to lie, I think that's something that needs to change as well. I know the Supreme Court
Correct.
said that they can lie, but like they have a moral duty to uphold this Constitution, and allowing police officers to lie just to get people to roll over is a little ridiculous. Like what that's the whole issue that we're facing in this country is
Yeah, I
if
agree.
if police officers didn't lie and we knew that they couldn't lie, I think you'd see a lot more people from various backgrounds no longer arguing or getting into fights with the police because then you have nothing to worry about. Versus, I think there's a lot of issues within the black community. I have a lot of friends in that community who said that they're taught not to trust the police, and it's because the police lie. And if the police didn't lie, then black people would not have an issue with trusting the police to the capacity that we have now. So if you eliminate the ability for cops to lie, black people are going to start to trust the police, and you're not going to see any of these crazy videos where black people are getting super upset and then getting shot at police stops or running from police and getting shot in the back. Like I think that's a huge issue that the Democrats don't really talk about. They just say, "Oh, this is police brutality," but it's like, but you're not doing anything to fix the police brutality. You're just saying that this exists, and you're putting the fear even further into people's minds. Like you're not doing anything to help the police departments. And then you have liberal people that are in charge of like the chief of Philadelphia who is like refusing to basically arrest black people based off of however she feels. If it's an equality or an equity thing, it just doesn't make any sense that nobody has figured out you can do minimum stuff and fix a lot of the problems that we have with the police departments. And it's really just start punishing them the way that a normal person would be punished, which is jail time, or losing their pension or firing them, versus letting them resign under their own free will. Because now that he's resigned, he can go take a job somewhere else.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't
That's
even
the
look
issue.
right. Exactly. That is the issue. You can go do it to somebody else.
Right. And,
I
and
would
a lot
suggest
of these
that
officers that are fired go get jobs at other departments, and that needs to stop as well. You should be stopped. Once you do something wrong, you can no longer be a police officer. That's how it is if you're an attorney. If you
right.
if you go to the bar, it
Right. You
takes
get
your
disbarred.
license,
Yeah.
you get disbarred, you can't go work as an attorney. Like
Yeah.
it's as simple as that.
I think that I agree with you. It's interesting what you say about police not being able to lie. Now, would you make an exception to that rule if somebody's being interrogated for, say, an imminent homicide or something like that? Like, I think there are situations where I don't think we should be able to lie either. I actually agree with you, especially when you're interrogating, when you're dealing with misdemeanors and
Mhm.
class B felonies. But maybe when you're dealing with homicide, sometimes a detective can use deception to solve a murder. You know what I mean? A real murder type of thing. I don't know. What do you think?
Sure, but again, you don't need to lie, right? Like there's ways in the English language where you don't lie,
Yeah,
but
true.
you might present it in a way that they think is
Like,
a lie, or
you're
you present
interrogating.
it in a
Or when you got two people an accomplice in a murder, and you go to one, you say, "Hey, the other one's rolling on you, man."
Right. Well, I
right,
mean,
right,
usually
You
when
know?
there's an interrogation going on, there are two police officers there. That's
right.
Yeah.
do,
And
do
again,
you know if
it
they have to have body cams in Connecticut?
Then I don't think there's a law about that yet that they have to.
Okay.
I think it's a department policy
Yeah, I think it's
from
town by
department to
town.
department.
Yeah,
Yeah.
department by
Um,
department. Yeah,
But to your point, like, no, you shouldn't be able to lie at all, even in an interrogation, because you don't need to lie in order to get the truth out of people. There's like, what does the CIA do, right? The CIA will
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
torture
torture you,
techniques. And,
Psychology.
waterboard your ass.
but
Oh,
I'm just saying the
psychology.
CIA has methods where they don't involve torture because you can't technically
Sure.
torture anymore. We know what goes on, but they have methods to get the truth out of people, right? Like, you could you could say, oh, this person's rolling on you, but that's a lie. What you can say is, well, if you don't come forward, we already know we're gonna most likely crack your accomplice and he's gonna most likely roll over on you.
Yeah,
That's not a lie. That's just saying this could happen, right?
Game
that's true. It's a
theory.
good point. It's a good point.
From
Yeah.
a legal
Game theory.
perspective, right. As long as there's nothing that is a definitive, it's not a lie. You can say if, could, maybe, right? That's not a lie, and it's still gonna get people to that are not the smartest
Right.
to roll.
I mean, are
So
officers trained in the Bill of Rights? Are they actually I don't know. I could ask people that have been to the academy. Do they actually have a thing all about the Bill of Rights and expecting the Bill of Rights? Probably not.
they don't even know every law in the state. Like that's not their job. That's what supervisors are for, and even
No,
supervisors don't know it.
no, they don't need to know. They're not lawyers. I get that.
Right.
Right.
But again,
Bill of Rights, though.
maybe they should take some ongoing classes in laws, and maybe it shouldn't be every police officer is just a blanket police officer. Maybe it should be certain officers cover certain things and they're responsible for this, right?
Mhm.
Like I know you've got departments within departments, right? So you've got like the cybercrime departments in the state police department, you got a
Mhm.
fraud department, but you could have other officers that are more responsible for say business crimes, right? You could
Yeah.
expand what officers do so that they are specialized in this area. That
Right.
way if a police officer comes out and isn't familiar with what the certain situation is, they can get the supervisor from that other department to come out and answer the questions and get the better background and kind of follow through that way. That's a huge issue. These police departments are not very innovative and
That's
they
what they do with
blame
doctors,
right.
right?
They exactly that's what lawyers are, right?
Specialized in everything, right?
You're
Lawyers
not
too.
a there's very few people that are generalists in the real world, in business, in medicine, in law. You're not a general person, right? You
Mhm.
can't be because you're not going to be good at anything. If
Right.
Yeah.
and and I think that the fact is these police departments, they just lie. They say they don't have the resources, but if you look at it, most of the money is going to their pensions. So if you stop doing that, you minimize their pensions and you make it so that police officers have to be well versed in certain subjects to continue to be an officer. And maybe they need to take continuing education like everybody else has to take for licenses. Like we have to do something to fix the training and the lack of I guess information that these officers have at their disposal. And artificial intelligence would be a huge thing for police officers
Very
because they
best.
won't even have to learn the laws. They could just ask their computer and the AI
Yeah.
is going to pull it. It's going to
Yeah.
pull it from the state statutes on what is and isn't a law. And it could even pull like because it's all interpretation, right? So if a police officer says, "Well, I want to arrest this person for this, this, and this," and then they do the search, and the search comes back with the results of people that have been charged with that and what it takes to actually charge somebody with that, are they going to charge them at that point if they realize it's not going to be worth it because it's going to get thrown out based off of case law? They're right. They're not going to do it. They don't want to do the paperwork. So the more information they have at their disposal, the easier their job's going to get, which means they're not going to have to lie in general because lying it's only going to get thrown out because that officer is going to get impeached in court and then they're
Right.
going to be on the Brady list for lying, right? So like what are we it just makes no sense that the Supreme Court said, "Oh, yeah, they can lie, they have qualified immunity." And the Democrats and the Republicans on both sides are like, "Well, it's the police, right? Like let's riot or let's not riot." And
Right.
it's a common sense issue that nobody really talks about. It's such an easy fix, but nobody wants to do it because the Democrats want those votes from the Teamsters and the
Mhm.
police unions. And the Republicans same way. They want the
Yeah.
votes as well. So it's a political thing.
It is, and then the people suffer as a result. So that's what we're going at. But
Yeah.
you got a few minutes left. We can talk about Minnesota a little bit.
Oh, sure. Let's talk about Minnesota.
Yeah, the rogue state.
So
Did
just
Walz
let
resign? Did he really
know
did resign?
He
what
resigned
he
When was
did.
that? Just recently?
last week.
Oh, I thought he just said he wasn't going to run again. I don't think he resigned, like left office. He's still the governor, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought
Like
so.
he's not going to run in the next election, but I know he actually resigned from office. Did
So
he?
just today, Trump has revoked temporary protected status for all Somalians,
Good.
and they have until March 17th to get out.
That's great because they'll tell you something.
Not all
This
Somali, but yeah, I'm sure there are some that that became actual citizens. But
Mhm.
they're talking about
the ones that actually want to assimilate in the country. There may be a few of those that do, but this is my point when I brought up before. This is a melting pot in America, not a salad bowl. Okay, we're not here to have 50. A country divided cannot stand. So if you're here to become an American, be part of our, bring the good things about your culture with us, like your good music or whatever you have. But this is about being, so you come here to assimilate and be an American. We're the melting pot, not the salad bowl. Okay. So we have this Somali community up in Minnesota, which is bringing their, we all know what Somalia is like. You don't
Yeah,
bring
they kind of
Somalia
dropped that.
here.
And so, for those that don't know, there is a ton of fraud. And was it just last week? Good Lord. Nick Shirley, who's a young 20-something reporter, started going around to different daycare centers, which are state funded, which I believe that was through Biden. There was a requirement through the Biden administration that child care be funded. And
Mhm.
so this went down through the states, and a lot of this went to Somalians, and he went to these daycare centers, and there were no children at all. Um, yeah, no kids at the
Yeah,
daycare centers.
whole thing's a fraud in the beginning.
And yeah, so there was it just million, I don't even, might be billions in fraud at this point. But this
It
is,
was.
yeah, it was billions. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so
Billions,
how much?
9 billion or more.
So they've surged ICE into the area, and the protesters are protesting, and someone got shot. So why
Mhm.
don't you guys talk about that part?
Sure. So apparently, a young woman, this is my understanding of the story.
Like she was
Uh,
probably about a millennial. I don't
oh, yeah, she's probably 20s, right?
I,
Um,
No, 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 no. She was 40s.
you
She's
think
okay.
she's
so?
she's like
40s,
late
really that
millennial,
old? People
young
look
young
people
Gen
look
X.
people look young to me now, I guess. A middle-aged woman, and I think she had a girlfriend or a wife, right?
Yeah,
A wife, yeah.
she did.
Um,
Not that that matters, by the
Not
way.
that that
Oh, not
matters.
that.
Well, she was there. The wife was there though, and watched this
Yeah,
whole thing.
Was
She
she on
came.
the
yeah.
scene? She was
She
on the.
was.
Oh,
She
She
wow.
was
came
trying
to.
to she was actually trying to get into the car when she drove off, and she
Oh,
was yelling "Go, go, go" to her
oh,
wife. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that part because there is I listened to an analysis of this, and there was some discussion about um and I'm sure this will all come out because I'm sure there'll be some kind of assessment around what actually happened. But there was some thought that some of the officers were saying, get out and get out of here. But if her wife was jumping in the car screaming, go, 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 chances are that's what she was listening to.
Mhm.
Well, even the ICE agents were telling her to move along, and she was trying to pull out of her driveway, I believe, and she was kind of blocking the road. But I they can say that it was intentional, and I understand why they felt it was intentional because of the protests that they were dealing with across town, where people were doing that.
Wait,
Uh,
this happened in front of her house?
this happened in front of her house.
Oh wow, I did not know
Yeah,
that part of it.
yeah. And I think the interesting part is most people that are in law enforcement have come out and said you do not ever stand in front of a vehicle
Right,
because of the risk of getting run over.
right.
And if you watch the video, this guy had almost nothing to do with this situation. He was filming the car, and he almost seemed like one of those First Amendment rights guys, that do the audits. Like
Yeah,
he wasn't talking, he was just filming the car
yeah.
and walking around, and it's like, what are you doing? This isn't like, are you on TikTok live? Like, how is that appropriate, right? Like, why is he on his phone at all? Why is he recording from his phone?
Mhm.
That's what I never understood about this. It almost felt like this guy isn't really a federal agent, right? That's how I'm looking at this, even though apparently he was and he had a gun on him, but he was also not doing what you're supposed to do from a
Right.
federal perspective. Like this guy shot and killed somebody. He laid bullets into her after he had already gotten out of the way and she was driving off. He just continued to fire at the car
Yeah.
through.
You can
And
make
it's
an
like,
argument. You can make an argument from. You can make an argument for manslaughter on this.
right, right. And again, why is this always happening in Minneapolis? You got George Floyd, and now you got another situation where it's like have these people not learned that it's everything is amplified in Minneapolis on the national stage at this point?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Um, But yeah, I mean, you can make an argument that yes, it was justified because she was in a car and a car can be considered a deadly weapon. However, he was right in front of the car. She wasn't speeding. She was basically at a standstill and then turned her wheels to pull off. And this guy, you can see wheels moving in front of you, right? You can see that. You can move out of the way and let them go. He just chose not to do that, and I think it almost felt like he wanted a confrontation based off the fact that he was recording. And we already know that if you're recording people on your phone in public, even though you have a right to do it, a lot of people get agitated from that. Right.
Yeah,
And a lot of people are already nervous around federal agents. There's already an issue with federal agents in Minneapolis where people don't want to deal with them. So these ICE agents need to be aware of their surroundings first and foremost to keep them out of deadly situations as much as the Democrats and the Republicans need to tell people to stop fucking around and leave them alone. But it's a two-way street, and her dying is a result of a lot of hyperbole from the left and the right,
that's
more
correct.
so on the left. But I don't think this guy is going to get away with this. I think he's most likely, based off of everything I've seen and including opinions from attorneys on both sides, I think he's probably gonna go to jail.
Well, if he did something wrong, then he should go to jail. But
Right.
this doesn't. But and what happened was unfortunate, you know. And when you're dealing with a volatile situation like you're dealing with in Portland and Minneapolis and Chicago, and especially when judges say we can't bring in the National Guard to protect the ICE agents, you're going to have this situation, and things like this are going to happen. We have thousands of ICE agents on duty, and every now and then one's going to do the wrong thing. So it doesn't change the fact that you should stay
Oh,
out of their way, not get in the way of law enforcement. They're acting on laws that were duly passed in Congress and endorsed by a duly elected president. And you should stay out of the way. Even some of the old 60s protesters will tell you, look, we let ourselves get arrested. You know, we got in the way, but we didn't impede.
mhm.
Right. Well,
And so
but
when you
again,
mess with the bull, you get the horns, man. You can't do that.
but again, in this situation, she was in her car in front of her house trying to pull out onto the road. The
Right,
ICE agents approached her.
right.
There's no reason for
Well,
them to
I
approach
thought she was
her.
blocking. I heard she was blocking the convoy with her car for a while. Wouldn't move though. That's what I heard.
Yeah,
I
I did that
I
too.
mean, it's like trying to pull out into traffic, right? Like that's how she could argue it. If she was alive, that's how she could have
Right.
argued it. It's like
Sure.
because they can't prove intent now. She's dead. They have they have nothing to go off of. Now it's just a one-sided transaction, which is death, and here we go for another murder case. But in
Well, they
reality,
don't they have evidence that she was one of the people that wanted to agitate with ICE and was like really
yeah,
into it and that kind of thing?
she literally said she was about to go to rallies across town.
Oh,
So
okay. That's
which
weird.
is it's just stupid of her to say that, right? But
Yeah.
people say stupid shit all the time. I don't and if ICE wants to come over and say, "Hey, you need to stop doing this," well then ICE should have escalated it to the point where they pull her out of her car. Right?
Right.
They stop filming it, stop listening to her bullshit you,
Right.
pull her
Yeah.
out of her car
No, it
and
doesn't
say
feel like they handled it right.
if you're not going to get out of your car, then you need to get out of the way. Otherwise, you are going to get arrested. If they had said that, she could have just left. As simple as that. But they chose to be confrontational, and this is a problem with law enforcement. They are choosing to be confrontational rather than de-escalating situations. We see this everywhere, and that is part of the conversation we were having about the police in general
Yeah.
not really being all that well informed and trained. And
Right.
this is a so federal or not, what he did, you could say is justified or you could say it's not justified. I think the evidence right now from everything that people are saying is pointing to the fact that this was a huge issue that never should have happened to begin
No, it
with.
shouldn't have happened. It was an unfortunate incident for sure.
Right. And now she's going to be martyred, unfortunately, by the Democrats, even though the Democrats probably are what led to her getting murdered to begin with because of all the
Right.
hyperbole
That's the
behind.
problem. That's the main problem.
Yeah.
That's the main cause of this. All the hyperbole being politicians go senators and going on and talking about how this is war. We got to take to the
Right.
street. I mean, they're literally inciting these people. That they say they want to protect women. Well, they're putting young women like her and middle-aged women here out there to do these kind of things
Yeah.
because they think there's Nazis. You know, that's just not responsible. And something's got to be done about that. You know, something's got to be done about that. There are limits to free speech, aren't there? I mean, there are limits to
Yeah.
it. It's
And
irresponsible. It's meant to foment violence. It's meant we have a real problem in this country. I think it's a bigger threat than people think, and we have people that are literally trying to overthrow our way of life and create. It's a combination of radical Islamists and as well as communism. You know, look what we have with the for mayor of New York. They're trying to destroy our culture, destroy our country. The United States is the only example of a truly strong middle class free country in the history of the world. And there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest in taking it down,
Right.
and so we have to look at it in those terms. And it doesn't change the fact that what happened in Minnesota happened, and this ice engine. Maybe if it's proven that the fact that I think we'll put, you know what, I don't know. The one thing that would make me say maybe he should go to jail is the fact that he continued to put bullets in her after she was clearly the threat was over.
And
Now,
they refused to call for medical help.
and I can understand, but I can understand though in the beginning because he was standing very close to the front of the truck. He shouldn't have been there.
Hmm.
But when that thing started moving at him, that's a
Oh yeah.
threat. And I can understand him taking out his farm, maybe shooting it off, but one shot or whatever, and then that stops the situation. But again, he kept firing,
Well,
and he
but
refused to get her medical help. So those two things contribute to why he should be held responsible for what happened.
listen to what you just said though. She started to drive, he got out of the way and started shooting. He got
No,
out of the way.
oh,
That's the problem. He got out of the way and then pulled out his service arm and started shooting. He was already
wasn't
no
he right
longer
up
in
against her hood
danger,
though? Wasn't he right up against her hood pretty much though?
and he was able to get out of the way. And the
How
car
though? Like
barely
there's no time. Once as soon as the car moves, he's already on his
be,
body.
because he was barely in front of the car. He was on like the corner, the driver or the driver's side
He's on the
corner of the
quarter. He's on
trunk.
the quarter panel.
Yeah, and he could have easily moved his foot out of the way, which is what he did. He didn't get hit. He didn't get taken out, right?
So
So
do you think he should have never? He should have never fired
he
his
never should
weapon.
have fired. He never should have fired.
Okay.
He could have pulled out his service weapon, right, to show that I feel you are a threat, and maybe that would have knocked some sense into her. But he moved out of the way and then shot, and that's like, so he could have gotten out of the way. He wasn't in immediate danger. It wasn't a weapon the way that they're describing, and that's what a jury's going to see is, well, he got out of the way and then he shot. That's what a jury's going to see. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what we talk about. It's just he was able to get out of the way, which means that
Yeah.
he was not in nearly as much of a threat as he thought, which means that it's not a defense point at like in other states, because I don't think Minnesota has a castle doctrine, right? I don't think, especially not for a federal agent, because they don't care, even though federal agents have more power, they don't have more power over state law if they're not like the FBI or somebody like that. He was
Yeah.
just so that's a big issue. And also the US Department of Justice attorney just resigned because of this. And he
Yep.
was a Trump appointee. So
You know the sad part is this does give the left the sort of inverted, weird Charlie Kirk they want. They're a little
yeah,
martyr. Incredible.
it's just it sucks because this stuff always seems to happen right as things are going well, and that's what I hate. I can't, and that's what the conspiracies start, right?
Well,
Like,
it's part of the struggle. It's part of the struggle. You know, like
yeah,
they're hoping for this kind of stuff to happen on the left and the far left because they put these people out there into these situations on purpose. And
right.
if you can make comparisons, if you're a history person, and by the way, we want to have a history program on here eventually too. If you're a history person, you can understand the parallels between the Civil War and what's going on now in cities like Minneapolis and Portland, where they're basically they haven't like officially seceded from the Union, but they're saying, you know, we're Minnesota, we're Minneapolis, you know, this United States thing, stay out. We have
Hmm.
our own little thing, corrupt thing going on in here. We have our own slave war going on here. Stay out. You know, and it's almost the same thing. They're not saying, "Hey, we've seceded from the union," but the way Minnesota, I hear there's parts of Minnesota that are basically being run under Sharia law right now. That's not something we compacted with when we admitted the state of Minnesota to the union and whatever that was, 1838 or whatever it was. That wasn't the deal,
Right. Well, not only that, but that's hysterical because now they want to push the federal government out when that's a Republican thing to say is more state rights, less smaller central government. So
right?
now the Democrats are all of a sudden in favor of states' rights and
Yeah,
not federal. Like that's like, dude, the amount of hypocrisy is just insane. And
it
because
is.
nobody is taught this and nobody pays attention the way that you do if you're in politics and
Right.
have a good fundamental understanding of history,
And yeah,
it's the stuff is going to continue on.
that's right.
And and that's a big issue. Like the government already knows that the vast majority of Americans are not the smartest. I mean, they do studies on this and they can get away with stuff, and that's a huge issue as well. So, um,
It's a long time thing. Goes back to ancient times. Pandering. It's called
right,
pandering, pretty much. You play to the
right.
public. You get them jealous of you. People that have more money than them. or you get or the ones that are minorities. You tell them the majority is oppressing them. That's another word they used to. Everything's oppression, oppression, oppression.
Yeah. I think if anything, we need to figure out how to get an amendment passed or a couple. And I believe we have this power as citizens not in government is we can write an amendment and then petition it to get passed throughout the states.
Our state
And
legislatures, yeah,
and I think it's something that I believe it doesn't have to be approved by Congress and Senate. I think it can be
yeah,
put as a vote on like a November ballot.
yeah,
But I think it's about time that people actually started putting pen to paper, like Ben Franklin always said,
right.
and writing some amendments and trying to get it across the country so that the citizens are voting on it. Because clearly, we've seen that Democrats and Republicans are never going to pass anything to limit their own power. They're only going to continue to expand their power. So, if we can pass something to say, hey, maybe it takes an American citizen to write an amendment about term limits. Maybe
Hmm.
that's where it starts. And then once term limits are in place, well, now you're cycling through people. But then what if there's another amendment about
I would rather pass laws about
stock trading?
or recall. How about recall procedure
Right,
for
right.
politicians that go rogue? That's what we really need.
And I think maybe a recall should be a national thing. Like there should be a national law that says you can recall any politician for any reason if it breaks like a certain boundary, like a moral code or something.
Break
Like
their oath.
right, like if we limit the politicians' power and we force them to have to do good, then you're going to see a lot more change happening on both the left and the right. But it takes amendments to do that.
And
That's the
because of the internet too, we can hold them accountable too. That's the best thing about it.
yeah.
One thing that's wonderful, we talked about this before, the platitudes and the short interviews, the short lines, just don't worry. Aaron Store, I hope you're listening. These platitudes don't work anymore. You're going to have to get down to the real issues and spend some time with the people.
Yeah.
So anyway, Selena,
Yeah.
this is very important. And so you're a writer.
Yes, I am.
So write us some amendments.
I'm not a lawyer, dude.
Uh,
Although I would like to point out that 2026 is the year in which citizens of Connecticut can actually change the Connecticut Constitution.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the vote. Like Jay just
Yeah,
you mentioned, mentioned about the amendments, right?
yeah.
Another one is the vote. We got to have voter integrity. We can do that
We
through
can
amendment.
we can vote for a Connecticut state constitutional convention this year. This is
Yeah.
the year that we can vote for that.
I
As
So
we
think
can do that as
now the
citizens,
question
correctly.
is, it's like, are they going to let us put it on the ballot? Because it legally it's supposed to be on the ballot. It's in the Constitution that
Yep.
every 20 years we get to vote for this, and this is the year. So
Wow, we got to do something around that.
so. Yeah,
Where's that
I think we should be able to get that passed from both sides at this point.
at this point from both
yeah,
sides?
yeah. And it would be really good to have some lawyers on board because
Yeah.
Where does that
all
come
I
from?
know is that this
Come
is
from?
possible, but there's a lot of stuff. It's like Connecticut has changed our constitution before.
Where's our form for that though? Where do we do? Where's our form for that? Like are the town committees,
I believe it's supposed to be on
the
the
state
ballot
legislature?
in
Oh, on the so the
2026.
Secretary of State then. That's
Yeah.
who do we go to and say, as people, we the people, put this on the ballot, Secretary
I'm
of
not
State.
sure whether it's automatically on there or we have to demand it.
Okay.
But it's something that people should be aware of because if it ain't there, it is literally in the Connecticut Constitution that every 20 years we get to vote on whether or not we want to have a constitutional convention.
Yeah. I
Well,
think
we need one.
we could trick the Democrats into voting for that.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, because there needs to be some things fixed here. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd write that. Just because I'm a writer, I am not a legal writer. That's a whole other ball game.
We just thought of 3 good amendments right here on the show just now. So
Yeah.
You know what'll help with that? AI. If you use like a
yeah.
Gemini
Yeah.
or a Grok, it'll help you get it in the correct legal terms.
Back when I was when I
All
was
right.
younger, when I was like in my 30s, long time ago, I was lamenting the problems we were having then, and I thought I had this idea that we should have a new constitutional convention in 2020. This is back in like 2010, I thought.
Okay.
A new constitutional convention in 2020, where just like back in the early days, where all the delegates from the state delegates selected by the people will
Mhm.
show up to discuss ways to amend the Constitution to make it not to take away rights, but to solidify our rights, solidify the strength of the Constitution.
It
And
was
the city.
uh,
Guess what the city that I envisioned it happening in though is. I missed on this one.
okay.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
What were you thinking?
I don't know what I was thinking. Of course, we didn't have
Amazing.
that was the city I had in mind. I don't know why.
That's interesting. I wonder where your brain was at that point. It's fascinating.
It was the nicest
Uh,
city then.
so it says the last vote was in 2008, which means the next one isn't until it says 2030 is the next vote for
Uh,
the.
I'm gonna have to look at that because I thought it was this year, and maybe it is 2030. But it's a.
It's
But
almost better
I
if it
think
is.
I was probably counting from when it was initially created.
It's almost better
Well,
if it is another year or two down the road because we can prepare
Yeah, it's
for it.
like
But
it's okay if it's another couple of years.
we
We're
can prepare for that. We can prepare really well for that.
Yeah.
I think what's weird is it says the last vote was in 2008, but the next one isn't scheduled for 2030. That's a 22-year
Yeah, what
gap.
happened to the
Yeah,
That
20
doesn't
years?
even doesn't even
that can't
follow
be
the
right. It's
20.
on there.
Yeah.
On
Uh,
there. Yeah, because it's supposed to be every 20 years.
well, 2028 would
I,
be
I
perfect.
literally read the Constitution, the state constitution with that. I didn't. I just like read the state constitution. So,
Okay. Well, with that, I think are we there? Is there
are we
anything else you
there?
guys
Yeah,
want to bring up?
I'm there. I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good too. It's been a good show, and I just want to thank everybody for watching. We are slowly but growing. Shirley, I just want to close by saying we are going to work very hard on turning this into a news network, not just a single podcast. We really want to do what Channel 3 and Channel 30 and all these other media outlets are not doing and hold them accountable and get to the real stories, like the chemtrail thing, for instance. We might just go to Wyndham Airport and see what's really going on down there.
That'd
All
be
right, because we want to get to the stories, the real stories. The Connecticut media is lacking. We've had a pretty good media revolution nationwide, I think, but in Connecticut, it's not happening. So with that, Selena Rifkin, John Anderson, and myself, Jason Douglas, well, thank you for watching. Have a great evening, everybody. God bless Connecticut and God bless America.
God bless Connecticut. God bless America.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.